No, not yet. Not until me and Harvey get the rules straightened out.
Rules? In a knife fight? No rules.
Well, if there ain't gonna be any rules, let's get the fight started. Someone count 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
I was really rooting for you, Butch.
Well, thank you, Flatnose.
You know, the movie is a classic when even the making of it has its own wild, untamed story. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969, had everything. A legendary cast, a gripping tale of outlaw adventure, and some behind-the-scenes drama worthy of its own Western. But one of the biggest shockers? Katharine Ross, the film's leading lady, was banned from the set. That's right. Despite playing Etta Place, the only significant female character in the film, Ross was kicked off set, and only allowed to be there when she was filming her own scenes. So, what happened? Why did director George Roy Hill lay down the law so harshly? Katharine Ross was a rising star at the time, fresh off her role in The Graduate, 1967, where she played Elaine Robinson and earned an Oscar nomination. Ross seemed poised for superstardom. When she landed the role of Etta Place in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, opposite Paul Newman and Robert Redford, it felt like the perfect career move. But things got complicated. George Roy Hill was known for being a meticulous, take-no-nonsense director. He wanted absolute control over his set, and he didn't like disruptions, especially when they involved his crew. Ross, meanwhile, had a deep interest in photography. She was dating the film's cinematographer Conrad Hall and spent a lot of time observing how the cameras worked. On one fateful day, she was on set during a scene involving a train robbery. There were 5 cameras being used, but only 4 operators. Seeing an opportunity, Hall invited Ross to operate one of the cameras, walking her through how to frame the shot. Hill was furious. Maybe it was because he wasn't consulted. Maybe he thought it set a bad precedent. Either way, at the end of the day, Ross got a firm message. She was banned from set unless she was actively filming a scene. That meant no hanging around, no observing, no behind-the-scenes learning. Just show up, act, and leave. Ross later described the experience as humiliating. It made the remainder of the shoot incredibly stressful for her, and she admitted that it took her a long time before she could even bring herself to watch the movie. Ironically, one of Ross's favorite scenes to shoot was the iconic bicycle riding sequence with Paul Newman, set to Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Why? Because it was filmed by a second unit crew, not George Roy Hill. She later remarked that any day away from George Roy Hill was a good one. Ouch. Despite the tension, Ross delivered a fantastic performance as Etta Place. Her chemistry with Newman and Redford added depth to the film, even though her character was somewhat overshadowed by the legendary outlaw duo. The film itself became an instant classic, but not without its struggles. Screenwriter William Goldman had a hard time selling his script at first. Studios were skeptical about the idea of outlaws fleeing to South America rather than going down in a blaze of glory in the Old West. But once Paul Newman signed on, the project gained traction. The title was even changed from The Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to reflect Newman's star power. The camaraderie between Newman and Redford was real, and their on-screen chemistry became one of the film's greatest strengths. However, getting Redford cast was no easy feat. Newman had to fight the studio to give him the role, as Redford wasn't yet a household name. This decision ultimately paid off, launching Redford into superstardom and solidifying his legendary partnership with Newman. There were plenty of behind-the-scenes stories that added to the film's mythos. For instance, Newman, Redford, and Ross were the only cast members who didn't get sick while filming in Mexico. Most of the crew, including Hill, came down with Montezuma's revenge thanks to the questionable local water. The 3 stars avoided it by sticking to soda and alcohol instead. Paul Newman, known for his pranks, once sawed George Roy Hill's desk in half after the director refused to pay a liquor bill he had borrowed from Newman's office. Robert Redford, ever the daredevil, insisted on performing his own stunts, including the dangerous train top run. Newman, worried about his co-star's safety, warned him, "I don't want to lose a co-star." Redford's dedication paid off, making his action scenes more authentic. And what about the real Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid? Their story is just as fascinating as the films. Butch Cassidy, born Robert Leroy Parker in 1866, grew up in Utah in a Mormon family. He took the name Cassidy in honor of an old cowboy mentor, and he soon found himself in a life of crime. Alongside the Sundance Kid, real name Harry Longabaugh, he led the infamous Wild Bunch, pulling off daring train and bank robberies across the West. Their charm and wit made them folk heroes. But the law eventually caught up. After fleeing to South America with Etta Place, their exploits continued in Bolivia. The film suggests they went down in a hail of bullets, but some believe Cassidy survived and lived under an alias for years. William Goldman, the film's screenwriter, was fascinated by this very idea. He famously said that what drew him to the story was the notion of a second act, the idea that these outlaws actually had a whole other life after their time in the Wild West. That's what made Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid so unique. It wasn't just about bank heists and gunfights, but about reinvention, survival, and the fleeting nature of legends. The film's impact was massive. It redefined the Western genre, blending humor and adventure in a way that hadn't been done before. It won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, and Best Original Song for Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. It also became a cultural touchstone, inspiring countless films, TV shows, and even a theme for Paul Newman's charitable foundation, Hole in the Wall Camp. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid remains one of the most beloved Westerns ever made. Its mix of action, comedy, and bittersweet storytelling captivated audiences, and it continues to be influential today. Katharine Ross may have been banned from the set, but she still left an indelible mark on cinema history. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think George Roy Hill was too harsh with Katharine Ross? Or do you think directors should have full control over their sets, no exceptions? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.